Excellent. Well, good day to you, Dr. Goswami. Good day to Pramod, the team, and indeed to all of you on the call. It's a wonderful opportunity. Congratulations to NICE for such a big meeting, managed over a couple of days with a really great range of speakers, including from China and Russia. I think this is very important and, of course, timely. I don't speak for any government, but I will discuss the issue at hand from more of a European perspective, being based in London, although I do a lot of my work in South Asia. So really, I want to make three quick points. The first is to say that from a European perspective, sorry, Indo-Pacific strategies are there to stay. That's the first one. The second one is about the role of technology, and Dr. Goswami has discussed this, and I know she's done a lot of work on this in the last few years. And the third point I want to make is around the importance of paradiplomacy and dialogues at various levels to help understand each other better. So, to the first point, Indo-Pacific strategies, as I think we all agree, are there to stay. There are trends in prosperity and security, which many before me in this discussion, the wider conference and outside have discussed, which all coincide to seeing the Indo-Pacific being central to not just prosperity, but also security in the next generation. Seen from a European perspective, there's an obvious question about the extent to which prioritization of the Indo-Pacific can take place at a time when Euro-Atlantic security is very much at the top of policymakers' priority lists. And we've a few new governments in major European countries, the UK, of course, France, and as of the next few weeks, likely in Germany also. The Ukraine war and its shadow over European security here is the main issue, although in the background there is the question of Russia's strategic behavior and intentions for the next few years towards Europe. And that's not just NATO Europe, by the way. Some of these issues were discussed in great detail at a recent new IISS forum involving defense chiefs in Prague. I think from a European and particularly UK perspective, if you're looking at Indo-Pacific intentions, if you look at what the UK particularly has been saying since the new Labour government has been in power since early July, you just need to look at a major statement by Minister Catherine West, who spoke at the IISS in an event we run with the Canadian, Singapore, and Indian High Commissions a couple of weeks ago. That transcript is on the internet to see that for the UK, and I quote here, the Indo-Pacific is a generational mission. It's a long-term posture, and it is not just a short-term set of sound bites. So I think the commitment there is very clear, but at the same time, there are questions around this prioritization, and this comes down also to budgets, and these questions will be, I think, becoming clearer as the UK's ongoing strategic defense review and spending review will conclude in the earlier weeks of next year. So all of this to say that there are plenty of national-based initiatives which target the Indo-Pacific. Its major players, of course, India, the US, China, and other big countries, either economically or in security terms. Those include Singapore, for example, Australia, etc. But I think because we are here hosted by NICE, it's very important to remember that South Asia itself matters to most Indo-Pacific strategies which are being put forward. Obviously, the maritime domain is the first order of priority here with a focus on interoperability, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this take place not just in the context of the Quad, but bilateral partnerships, perhaps also in the context of AUKUS. But if you're looking at a country which is landlocked like Nepal or Bhutan, you're really looking at other things here. You're looking at how India, Western countries, and each of these countries, Nepal or Bhutan, can come together in ways which do benefit the countries of the region, with the acknowledgement that there is strategic competition ongoing in South Asia. So a little more on this afterwards, but this brings me to my second point about technology. It's very obvious that technology matters both to the security and prosperity objectives of major countries today. This is central to their approaches to the Indo-Pacific. And technology plays a key part in the formulation or the latest iteration of their strategic partnership approaches towards not just the major countries of the region, the Indias, the Chinas, but also smaller countries. I think here the main issue and complication is that technology is not necessarily an ask from countries such as Nepal, for instance. At the same time, though, there are opportunities to ensure that initiatives in, say, the space domain can benefit the whole of South Asia. These can bring in conveniently a country like India and some of its supporters outside. You can look at climate change initiatives, climate finance, but also practical projects. And there are plenty, I think, of opportunities for cooperation to happen. Even with China, I think cooperation of a tailored sort on cyber criminality, for example, of the sort which is cross-border and destabilizing, can be really important. But at the heart of those approaches, there needs to be the agency of the so-called smaller countries. This is something I talk about a lot with colleagues in some of our Track 2 and Track 1.5 initiatives, and I've written about this with my colleague Biraj Solanki from the IISS. The agency has to be, if not the starting point, at least co-equal to some of the objectives which countries have in terms of the Indo-Pacific. Technology can forward cooperation in that sense, but it's important to take practical steps. One of those, for example, could be that as Western countries in particular develop the concept or create the positions for tech envoys, that they should send those envoys not just to the major countries like India or others, but should send them to smaller countries like Nepal, for example, for discussions about opportunities for cooperation, but also to help clarify what these countries, these major economies stand for and do not actually stand for, to dispel misconceptions. And this brings me to my last point about paradiplomacy. I think many of us are familiar with the importance of unofficial Track 2 or Track 1.5 contact involving serving officials. It is very clear to me that as the going becomes tougher, as the opportunities for misunderstandings increase generally, it's very important to have two types of dialogues. Dialogues which help clarify assumptions between friends, but also potentially between rivals that can range from defense, security, but prosperity issues, which are all connected. It's very important to understand, again, the asks of countries such as Nepal and others in South Asia. And the second category is the contacts which aim to discuss the possibility of major crises which would have a cross-regional impact in the Indo-Pacific. There can be specific cases which tie specific countries, but also more major widespread diffuse crises, which could do with HADR contingencies, climate change, etc. So there's plenty of scope for contact for defense diplomacy, such as the IISS exercises, the Shangri-La Dialogue, and in other meetings, but also a range of other meetings. So I want to leave it on this note, and I look forward to our questions.